Hello, everyone. I'm Traci Arieli, end of life doula and founder of Comforting Closure. Welcome to another episode. Dementia changes how families relate to the people they love. It brings fear, uncertainty, and a lot of assumptions about what's no longer possible. My guest today is Marilyn Raichle, the author of Don't Walk Away. Marilyn did not plan to become a caregiver. She was reluctant, unprepared, and raised in a family where Alzheimer's was seen as something worse than death, something you avoided, something you walked away from. What happened instead was a caregiving experience that challenged nearly everything she believed about dementia, loss, and connection. Through time with her mother and lots of creativity, Marilyn began to see not only what was changing with her mother, but what was still very much there. So grab a warm drink, find a comfortable seat, and join us for the conversation. Marilyn, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Now, before we start to talk about dementia, I want to start with you. Who were you before this caregiving journey entered your life?
Well, I was the fourth of five kids. We were all incredibly competitive. I was very competitive. My whole purpose was to succeed and to win. And I wasn't used to listening to people. I was used to really winning and working for me. And so the whole concept of the term together was sort of alien. And to say that I was emotionally unavailable is an understatement.
One thing I love about the book is you make a clear distinction between the term caregiver, which we all usually use,
Yeah.
and being a care partner, which, as I said, I love. How do you define that difference?
Well, for me, being a caregiver, and I think for a lot of people, it is taking care of some poor soul who needs your help, someone who is ill, someone who is damaged in some way, and you are helping them. When I became mom's care partner, it was interesting because the distinction was immediate. When at one point, I realized that I was part of this process. I was always keeping myself distant from mom and what she was going through. I was there to help her. But once when she was painting and I noticed that her artwork seemed to me to be deteriorating, and so I got to the assisted living facility early before the painting class, and we did everything she liked to do. We took a walk, we played Scrabble, we looked at the view, and then I took her to the class, and her paintings completely changed. All these warm animal images, all these different colors came in, and that's when I went, oh, I get it. I'm part of this process. I have a
Mm.
role to play. We're partners. And so from that point, my orientation to my life with mom is that we were partners building a life for both of us together.
Now, something I find really interesting is you mentioned when we spoke the last time that Alzheimer was something that was worse than death. Any dementia was worse than death, and you
Yeah.
avoid it, you walk away from it. Now, tell me exactly what you mean by you saying you walk away from it. Did your parents actually say, "Oh, if I get this, just leave us alone, leave us to die"? Uh,
Well, they lived in a really nice assisted living facility. They lived in a really good continuing care facility because mother bought Microsoft stock in the 70s, so she had
she
enough
was
money to
smart.
go there.
It's
She was
always the
very
woman.
smart.
We know.
Exactly. And so we as kids, mother would always say to us, because she had taken care of her mother, and her mother was sort of a burden, but
Mm.
not by current standards. And she told us, she said, when we get Alzheimer's, I want you to walk away. We're not going to recognize you. There's nothing you can do. We're going to be fine. We're in a safe place. So go live your life. Don't sacrifice it for us and walk away. So that's what we meant. They lived in a great place. We didn't have to worry about them. We didn't have to be involved in their care. We saw them occasionally, but not often. And we
Mm.
walked away. Emotionally, definitely walked away.
And is that how when your mom, now I know your father passed away before your mom was
Yeah.
really sick. So was that your father got sick, he passed away, and your mother was sick when he was sick also? I'm just
No, mom started to develop this in her early 80s.
okay.
Dad also had Parkinson's, so he was
Mm,
developing his own version of
yeah.
dementia. And and so dad died at 89. And sadly, dad died before I had all these realizations of how to react to a person living with dementia as human beings with empathy and love. And so mom, when dad died, we were all in the room with him, and we thought, should we wake her up? Because she's not going to remember this and she's going to have to go through this every day. But we woke her up, and I've never seen tears like that because we had rules. There were rules in the family, Scottish Calvinist rules. If someone died, there were no funerals, there were no memorial services, and there were no tears.
Mm,
And so mom was just sobbing. I'd never seen her cry,
mm,
and I'd never seen tears like that. And so we finally got her calmed down and back to sleep. And the next morning I got there and she remembered. And we talked about dad and what a wonderful life they had. And the second day I got there early and she remembered. And the third day I got there and she was lying in her bed crying, saying, I just want to be with your father.
mm.
And without thinking, I summoned the mother of my youth and I said, well, mom, you should have thought of that before you started taking such good care of yourself.
Hmm,
And
hmm,
she laughed and she said, well, that's life. And from then on, she put it in a little box. And we all
hmm.
assumed that she had forgotten, but she didn't. She was saying, oh, Bob, 40 times a day.
Mm. Yeah, I know you said that when you became a care partner, you were reluctant, you were underprepared. What
Oh,
was,
yeah.
first of all, why did you make that switch of saying I want to take care of her versus walk away? And what was the hardest thing about playing that role, especially in the
Well,
beginning?
I didn't want to. I didn't want to at all. That when I came back from graduate school, it was during the recession and there were no jobs. And so my brothers and sisters said, okay, we're going to pool our resources. We're going to keep you afloat and you're going to be the family caregiver.
Wow.
I had no desire to do that, but okay. So you have no idea how much I did not want to do that. But it was a source of money. It was a job. It was my new job. And
When you say it
that's
was
how,
your source of money, what do you mean? Because most caregivers in the United States aren't being paid. Now it's starting to
right,
change, luckily. But
right.
did your did that was just something within your family? They said, "Okay, we're going to pay you."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They said, we're going to give you some money so you can do this. And
Nice.
that's that. So I said, okay. So that's when I started. And I have to make this really clear that I do not claim to be a home caregiver who
Mhm.
have really hard job. They're operating without a net. I
Oof.
was Mom and dad lived in a great place called Horizon House. They were taking care of their care. I was there to take them to doctor's appointments, keep them occupied, keep them entertained. Um, and that was my job. So when I say family caregiver, I am overstating it by a thousandfold.
Hmm.
Um, but I was there every day, and not every day, actually. Yes, I was. I was there every day. And mother's words were always in the back of my mind. Walk away, walk away.
Mm.
I looked at the clock. I was not a good quote caregiver. Um, it took a while. Took a while.
Was that actual shift gradual, or was it like the switch you talked about earlier today? You saw her painting, and then
Oh
boom,
no,
it
it
just
was
kind of hit
gradual.
you.
I slowed down. I slowed down and started to listen to them. I had reminded myself that they were my parents and I did love them. That was another thing. The word love was never spoken in our household. It,
Mm.
but I knew mother loved me because that was her job. So that was okay. So I knew they loved me, even though we never talked about it.
Yep.
Um, And so what happened was that dad had Parkinson's. Mother considered herself his caregiver. Um, and she wanted the best for dad. Dad wanted the best for mom. I wanted the best for both of them. And so what we sort of came to was shared goals, shared needs.
Mm.
So that's basically how I shifted into a decent caregiving role. That it was, I wanted to make sure that they were happy, that they were cared for, that that they were okay, and that I did love them. That's was the first stage where I sort of calmed down, and then I started to listen to them and hear what they were telling me to do, telling me what they wanted to do. And I did have to stop mother because dad was in a wheelchair, and she would always say, "Hop up, Bob, hop up." And then he
Mm.
would fall down. And
Mm.
I went over to her once and I said, "Mom, please don't tell dad to hop up. He's in a wheelchair." And she said, "No, he's not." So it was, the nurses were dressing and undressing dad, and that was mother's job. And she was just furious that they were doing that. And I said, "Mom, he needs help." And she said, "No, he doesn't. If he needs help, I can do that." So, but what was interesting about dad was he fell 22 times that year and never broke a bone.
Wow. He has some
He
good
was
bone structure.
incredibly strong. It was an interesting transition, that I started to listen to them and take care of them, and that's was unusual for me because that's not how I was raised.
Yeah. Your brothers and sisters, your siblings, did they take and kind of come around after they saw the relationship with what relationship you had with your parents, especially your mom, after that
No,
switch?
that was my job.
Okay.
I mean, I wish they had one person asked me once. They said, "Are you angry with your siblings that they didn't see your parents?" And I said, "No. I wish they had, because they would be so much happier now." It
Yeah.
was just it was just unfortunate that they couldn't. Dad, my sister-in-law saw my mom's kid sister Louise, but um, it was that kind of family again. When I say emotionally, we were all sort of emotionally, you know, separate from each other.
What do you think happens, or how do you think the grieving experience was different for you guys? Because do you feel that you being their care partner, that it gave you a sense of not only growing and bonding with them more, but that you had some closure, or you had yeah, compared to your brothers and your siblings? Do you ever talk to your siblings about it, or have you?
No. And you have to go back to the fact that in this family, emotions were
Right.
considered an emotional indulgence.
Hmm.
It's not something we talked about. When we talk about walking away emotionally, that was serious. And everybody grieved in their own way, but it was private and not not shared. It it was that kind of family. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is. Now, when did you realize that you weren't just caring for your mother, but partnering with her and building a life together? I know you had a switch where you said, when I saw her painting, that I knew that I was part of this, and I started listening to her more. But there's a difference between that and really building a life together.
Well, it was fairly quick because when I realized that, I mean, there was a I had actually sort of turned mother's artwork into a new job. Um, so that because when people would see the art, they would always ask one question. I had no idea, not a question, just like surprise. I had
Yeah.
no idea. And found that I used to say that Alzheimer's is scary and art isn't. So I would show people the art, and then I could talk to them about Alzheimer's after
Mm.
the fear went away. Um, and so I had turned it into this nice little business called the Art of Alzheimer's. And then
Mm.
So it was more gradual that I had to separate myself, from that and focus more on mom. But I started to see mom not just on painting days, which I was doing before, but then it was every day. And it wasn't that I had to see mom, it's that I needed to see mom because we were
Mm.
getting so close and we were having so much fun. And I was learning something new every single day. Um, and the first big lesson is that I let go of the woman that I felt she used to be, and I embraced the woman who is with me in the moment. And I learned the term she is living with, not suffering from. All
Mm.
of these were new to me. Um, but then wonderful things happened when I just assumed that mother was happy to see me when I arrived to see her, that she was excited. But she was far more excited and interested in all of her companions in assisted living. She had a new family. And fortunately, they were willing to accept me as a member of their family. So I had a
Mm.
new family with 6 new adopted mothers.
Hmm.
And so it was just like every day my life got bigger and
Mm.
more loving. And when I would tell people that I go to assisted living to relax, they would look at me like I was crazy. But it was so relaxing. There were no deadlines. It was just happiness and love.
Do you feel, all of us, when we're young, when we're kids, when we're children, we have a certain type of relationship with our parents. And as we
Yeah.
get older, me and as an adult, I have a friendship with my mom. And do you feel that your relationship with your mom when you were taking care of her, that was actually better? You grew closer with your mom than and I'm talking about as an adult, not when you were a child,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
before you became her caregiver, or do you feel that you became closer to her?
Yes, that there was a time before mother started to develop dementia. And I lived very close to where she lived, she and dad lived. And one day she arrived and I was taking a nap and she laid down next to me and she told me she loved me,
Mm,
something I'd never heard before.
wow.
And I remember crying. I didn't say anything, I just cried. And then she said, I guess I should have said that more often.
Mm,
And that was that. We didn't talk about it. But our life together as care partners unlocked all of that love that had been
mm,
waiting so long to express itself. And so for me, every single day, it was happy
mm.
because I was not just getting to know mom, being with mom. It was it was life changing.
Yeah, you had a very strong relationship with her, a strong
Yeah.
friendship.
And yeah. And always didn't always know who I was. Um, but it didn't matter because she was always happy to see me. And I would always knock on her door and I would open it and say, it's your daughter, Marilyn. So she would know, so she wouldn't have to guess. And then we would start our regular routine. I would always say, I'm going to beat you at Scrabble.
Mm.
And she said, I wouldn't want to make you cry. And then we would play Scrabble, which we did every day until she died.
Mm.
Because she was incredible. Who mom was, essentially, I've always felt was intact, dimmed, but intact. And I've always described her as distilled to her essence,
Mm.
that she was, and that so that this competitive nature, her need for friends, her need to be of value, all that stuff was so strong with her. And it never ever left her.
Mm. Interesting. Now I'm really curious. Was your mom an artist before she had dementia? Because I see
There,
her artwork behind you, and you've shown
oh
me her
yeah, that's
artwork, and it's really, really good. And I'm sorry for people who are listening versus watching the video. Her artwork, is really creative, and there's no way I could do
yeah.
this. There's just no way that I have the talent to do that.
She didn't paint. There were rumors that she once said that when she was very young, she painted animals that no one had ever seen. But
Mm.
that ended when she was probably about 5. Um, she didn't paint. Everyone in her family had a lot of artistic activities. My grandfather wrote poetry. Mom played the piano every day when she was starting when she was about 5 or 6. Everyone painted, um, but I mean, not sorry. Everyone sang. Everyone played an instrument, but no painting. And I asked her sister Louise. I said, "Did you ever paint?" She said, "No."
Mm.
It was just, and I have no idea why, but it was like not done.
I think one of the really beautiful things about your relationship with with your care partner and relationship with your mom is that the art became a doorway for connection. But it wasn't the
Yeah,
only one, but compared to people just doing tasks, I think a lot of people who visit their parents and you did talk about this a little bit, that you were there to take her to the doctors. And so you did have tasks, but so many
yeah,
people focus on the tasks and things they need to get done versus building a relationship. And so
yeah. And when
what would you say to people who are really caught up on doing those tasks and haven't found a way to cross that bridge to building a relationship, being a care partner versus just being a caregiver?
I think and it sounds really hard. For me, it was sharing joy. Um, I was once talking to somebody and he was telling me about visiting his wife. And he said, when I see her, she kisses me and she tells me she loves me. And when I look in her eyes, there's nothing there, and I
Mm.
leave in tears. And I thought, why couldn't he see what I most likely would have, which is a woman with something to say? And if your entire orientation is nothing but sadness and loss, that is all you will ever see. But if you allow yourself to share joy or to give them the opportunity to express joy, that person you think is gone can emerge. So with painting, it emerged. With singing, it emerged because we sang a lot, sang a lot. Um, but and so when somebody says to me, I don't know how to do that, I said, okay, just take 5 minutes, maybe even less than 5 minutes. Find something that you both enjoy doing and do that. And you may see that person you think is gone emerge. You will see that person enjoying themselves. You will see something more than sadness and loss. You will be able to see that person you thought was gone. And if you keep doing it, you can build on that and
Mm.
build something that you are so happy to be doing with each other. You look forward to it. So with mom, it was art, but it was also singing. And it was also taking power walks. I mean, she was very funny. So that it was just it might be easier than one thinks. What's harder is finding the time to do it where you
That's what I
can
was about to
relax and do.
say. I was
Yeah,
about to say you need to cut out, you need to make that time because you still have to do the tasks. I mean, there's no way
right,
around that, but
right.
you need to cut out time to slow down, to match your loved one's pace, to listen more. And I think there's a big problem in the US with not being able to do that because we're so busy working and just making it
Right.
that you had the luxury of being paid to
I did.
be a care partner. Most people do not. Yes, it is changing, but we really have a problem here.
Yeah. And caregivers have to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to be around if they keep driving themselves like that. So to take just those moments of have fun. It's too bad if they all played Scrabble, it would be easy. It Mother at one point, mother would start doing these things like when she would ask me if she could give me her soul in exchange for good tiles. And I said, no, mom, you're going to need your soul. But, but she was always doing something fun, but it didn't start that way. It started that I don't want to be here. And I don't
Mm.
want, it started that I wasn't listening to the person. I was only hearing the confusion. I wasn't seeing the person. I was only seeing the loss. And once you can make that switch, allow yourself just to have fun once, and maybe you'll want to keep doing it. It's very relaxing. I used to tell people just ask a question and then hop on for the ride.
Yeah, just be curious. Be curious about
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is.
Be curious. Ask questions. It's always good. Ask questions. And I had to, because I wasn't used to asking questions. I was only interested in answering questions. But once I started asking her questions, it was fascinating.
Now, you talked about, sometimes your mother won't recognize you, sometimes she would. And you talked at the beginning of this interview about your mom really grieving your father, which surprised
Yeah.
all of you. What did that teach you about emotional memory? Because I've talked to people
Yeah.
who have had mothers who have had dementia, and at some point, or have parents who have dementia. At some point, they're like, you speak to the emotions. You don't. You're not rational. You can't be rational. You have to speak to their emotions and meet people where they're at.
The only one I have a problem with is they're not rational. That I think that we underestimate people who live with dementia, that they share the same needs that we do, differently, but they're human beings first, not people with dementia first. And that we're all experiencing one reality. They see it a little differently. But with mom and dad, because they were together for 72 years
Mm.
and they adored one another. And that he was always there. When I would get there, I would find that all his pictures had been rearranged. She was always thinking about him, even though it wasn't, she didn't talk about it, but he was always there. And when we looked at photographs, those were the photographs that made her so happy, their past life together. And so with mom, we just had fun. Um, and I just listened to her and hopped on for the ride. That it was easy to talk to mom because she was a whole human being, different, but all of her same impulses, all of her same needs were there, same as mine.
Looking back at your relationship with your mom, what would you have changed in any of how you took care of her?
Oh, I would probably would have listened earlier. Um, I would have asked more questions. But but once, because I was with her after I made that change for 9 years, so that it was I was trying to always listen to her, and just because when she was talking to me, she was telling me something. I didn't always understand it, but she was always telling me something. And so with mom, I would have probably, I know this sounds odd. No one's asked me that question before. I can't think of too many things that I would have changed. We were very happy with each other. Um, I would have probably spent more time with her.
I've talked to people who have regret and feel guilty about the experiences that they had with their parent or parents who have dementia and they're in assisted living. What would you say to people who are going through this guilt? And
Well, yeah, sorry. There are a lot of people who feel guilty and then they stop visiting because they feel guilty. And then if they visit again, they're even more of a stranger. So it's even more difficult. So I guess the first thing is just let go. It's not about you. First big lesson. It's not about how you might feel if you had dementia, because you don't, and you don't know how you'd feel. So just, it's not about you. It's about them. And so I would say just slow down, forgive yourself for anything you might have felt before because it's a new day and because she will be probably not remembering all of that. She'll hold on to some of that. I'm a little leery, but be there. Just be there and do something that she loves to do and let her shine. And then that would be my main thing is just
Mm.
let her shine and believe it. Believe that she can shine. Believe that she is still there. If you think she's gone and there's no one there, sad little creature, it's going to be hard on you because you're going to have to actually convince yourself or just say, she's still here. That woman I grew up with, she's still there. And so ask questions, ask questions. Just be with her and let her share her life with you and see what happens.
Now you've been clear that we as a culture don't do a really good job. Okay, so we do a terrible job at supporting people with dementia, right?
Uh-huh.
What would you change? What would you change in our culture, in our government, in any
Oh,
part of the U.S. to so it would make it easier for people to do right by their
I have a
loved one?
list.
Oh my
I have a
goodness, you
list.
created a list.
I have
That's
a list. I
awesome.
mean, the
Okay, go
first one
ahead.
is these are the things that irritate me. We discount people who live with dementia as no longer valuable,
Yep.
as not worth caring about, that they're no longer there. Okay, that's the first one. Stop that. That's bad. Because they are. And we are doing a terrible job of supporting caregivers, um,
Hmm.
giving them the support they need, the respite they need. Um,
Totally.
and these are people doing tremendous amount of work and they should be compensated for it so that they can continue to do that and get some respite and take care of themselves. The nursing homes and the assisted living facilities, many of them are good, but many of them are just warehousing them and they're all horribly expensive. I mean, some people are paying $16,000 a month.
Yeah.
And who can afford that?
Yeah. And that's just for being there. I mean, then there's
Right.
additional cost to the actual care. People don't realize how expensive it is to get old in the United States because we're all going to get sick. I can't even say how expensive it is to get sick in the United States because all of us are going to
Right.
get sick. It is a crime. It really, to me, it is a crime that we don't take care of people who are sick, people who are aging. It is a crime with the amount of money we have.
It's true. And that if you're in an assisted living facility, if you have dementia, as you advance in your condition, it gets more expensive.
Mhm.
So that they can, you could start out at 16,000 a month, but it could go up to like 25, depending on if you reach level 5 on your needs schedule.
Yeah.
So it's wrong. And then I don't know if you've ever heard of this term. There's something called the forgotten middle. And so that if you make a certain amount of money, you're eligible for Medicaid. And then you can go into one of these facilities, not the high-end ones, but nursing homes. But if your Social Security payments are just a fraction over the limit of the cap on Medicaid, you can't go.
Yeah.
And I asked somebody once who was in a assisted living facility, I said, what do you tell people who have reached the cap and they are not eligible for Medicaid? She said, die. So, yes, we are doing a terrible, horrible, awful job. And until we believe that people living with dementia are valuable human beings, able to live with joy and happiness, we're not going to change that. We're not going to put money into their care because why bother when we have other things to put our money into?
Yeah.
You can tell that it irritates me incredibly. Um,
I don't blame you. Just to hear that story, it is, I don't know why that surprises me. I really
yeah,
don't because I know healthcare. I mean, I see it. I see how people are treated. So I know our lack of healthcare and yeah.
yeah.
So
But, but But on the other hand, I had those wonderful 9 years with mom.
Mm,
Um, and had wonderful 9 years with all those lovely women. I would do things with them that were so much fun. Every day when I would arrive, I would give them all shoulder massages. I would ask first,
of
and
course.
then they wouldn't necessarily know what a shoulder massage was, but they see the person next to them having a wonderful time, and then they would want one. And and one day, a woman named Gloria came up to me and she gave me the best compliment I'd ever received in my entire life. She turned to me and she said, "Do you tuck your wings in a handkerchief
Hmm.
when you're not here?"
Do you miss doing,
And
do you miss
uh,
going and doing this angel work? Do you, and not even your
yeah,
mom. I mean, yes, you miss your mom, but do you miss doing this work that you did?
well, I miss them immensely. But when mom, there were after mom died, then COVID came in, and I wasn't even
Mm,
allowed to go and visit them.
yeah.
But they were, but when mom died, um, I went back to assisted living about 2 days later just to be with them. And and this wonderful woman named Ruby, who she was from Atlanta, and she was talking about mom. And she held up this little red plastic flower and she said, "I think about Jean every time I see this. You want to know why?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "'Cause she tried to eat it."
Oh my. Oh
And
my.
just being there, it was just so it was so wonderful. It's such
Yeah,
solace just to be with these fabulous people. It
wonderful.
took me a while to actually make the decision to re-enter the world because I was having such a wonderful time with these women. I used to tell people who were lonely, I said, go to an assisted living facility and adopt a mother. But you have to remember, you have to keep going. You can't just visit once or twice. This is a commitment. But these women were just glorious.
Now, Marilyn, I'd like to thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us and writing your book and just being so honest and open. I'm really grateful for the work you do. Now, for people who want to read your book or learn more about you, where can they find out more about you?
Well, they can with the book. We actually have a website for the book. It's called don'twalkaway.net. And there's stories about me and stories about mom and podcasts and um, where to buy the book. You can just click on the link and it'll take you to Amazon. But so that we make it easy. So don'twalkaway.net. And mother would be astounded that she was having an impact on people's lives. She would be pleased, of course, but astounded. But but it's a wonderful thing. And being with mom changed my life. It's the best decision I ever made in my entire life.
Mm. Oh, thank you. Listeners, dementia care asks us to rethink what we believe care is supposed to look like. Many of us are taught to focus on tasks, safety, and what's being lost. But this conversation points to a different way of thinking, a shift from being a caregiver who manages decline to being a care partner who stays in the relationship. That shift doesn't remove the hard parts, but it changes the tone of the experience. It invites you to slow down, to respond instead of correct, and to meet the person where they are rather than where you wish they could be. Even as things change, the person is still here. And how you show up moment to moment can shape the quality of life for the both of you. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Traci Arieli from Comfort and Closure, wishing you peace and comfort in your journey. Until next time, take care.